What's going on, Texans fans? I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, I'm going to look at 5 surprise cut candidates for the Texans after week 1 of OTAs, and I want to emphasis on the surprise because I want to let y'all know I don't think each of these 5 guys are going to get cut. I don't really want these 5 guys to get cut, but we saw last year there were some guys who we thought were going to make the roster who ended up getting cut. So I'm looking at some of those guys, some, roster bubble guys who I would be surprised if they got cut, but could also see it happening at the end of the day. And I can promise you this at home, folks, if any of these guys do get cut, we're going to break it down here on the channel. Go down and hit that subscribe button for daily Texans news and rumors content. We are bringing you daily Texans videos for free. So go down and hit that sub button. And if you haven't turned your notifications on, go down and do it. Go down and hit the bell so when we drop a video, if one of these guys does surprisingly get cut, you'll be the first one to know when we drop a video and we break it all down for you. First up, surprise cut candidate, going with Andrew Beck, the fullback tight end combo. And honestly, this one may not surprise some of you folks at home because I know there's some people that aren't the biggest fans of Andrew Beck, the fullback tight end combo, kind of gadget guy. 11 receptions for 55 yards, 2 touchdowns last year. He also had that kick return touchdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was absolutely electric. But I don't know what his role is going to be going into next year because he wasn't like an amazing run blocker for this team. And I see this team going a lot of sets with 3 wide receivers because you have 3 great ones right now. And then that leaves probably a tight end and then a running back. So where's the fullback? You kind of don't need one at that point. And another surprising move the Texans made this past offseason was they traded for Rams wide receiver, tight end, fullback combo, Ben Skowronek. And yes, fullback, because I know he was listed as a wide receiver, but in that Rams offense, sometimes he would take snaps at tight end. Sometimes he would take snaps at fullback. So could we see, Bobby Slowick implement a guy who doesn't play fullback full time, but can play fullback in some instances and give you a receiving threat out of the backfield? And Skowronek is actually a decent run blocker. So I could see really him taking over that role and really the team not needing Andrew Beck going into next year. So that would be my first surprise cut candidate for the Houston Texans. Next up, Brevin Jordan. And yes, he came on. He played great against the Cleveland Browns in that playoff game, had the electric 70-plus yard touchdown catch, longest in Texans history. But at the same time, the Texans drafted Cade Stover, C.J. Stroud's best buddy from Ohio State. They re-signed Dalton Schultz, and Brevin Jordan, could he be the odd man out? I know, just like I said with Skowronek, could they, have a guy like that where he plays multiple roles for the team? I don't think he ends up getting cut because I think he's obviously the third tight end. I think Tegan Cortoriano is more likely, but you never know with this squad what they're going to be looking for in that tight end 3. Brevin Jordan last season, according to PFF, here are his grades: a 68.7 overall grade, reception grade of 72.1, pass block is 69.3, and a run block of 59.1. I know his snaps are going to deteriorate this year. Even though he didn't see the field a ton last year, I still think you're going to see a lot of Cade Stover going into this season. And then you just re-signed Dalton Schultz, so he's going to get a lot of the snaps too. I expect this team to go a lot out of 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end sets, and 1 running back. I see them running a lot of plays out of that. So not a lot of 2 tight end sets means less opportunities for tight ends, and that means it's really going to be Dalton Schultz and the next guy, which I believe is going to be Cade Stover. And I think Cade Stover is going to get the second most snaps out of all the tight ends this year. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think it's going to be Brevin Jordan instead? Let me know down in the comment section. Will Cade Stover get the second most snaps at tight end this year? Next up, John Metchie, wide receiver. And I know I'm going to get some hate for this one. I know a lot of you are going to be upset. But hear me out. I don't know where he fits in this wide receiver room because you have obviously the top 3 guys. In Diggs, you have Tank Dell, and you have Nico Collins. And then past that, you have Noah Brown, who they just re-signed, and I think, played better than Metchie last year, is more of a reliable guy. We've talked about Ben Skowronek and how he can be a wide receiver and play other roles as well. Robert Woods, a lot of people are just saying it's a foregone conclusion that they cut Woods. I don't necessarily think it's 100% that happens. He's still a decent wide receiver. And then you also have Xaiver Hutchinson on the back end and Sims. So I don't think he gets cut. But is there a world where John Metchie doesn't make this roster? That's a possibility. I mean, played okay last year, has had drop issues. And we saw it, in OTAs. He beat Jeff Okudah on a beautiful play and then ended up dropping an over-the-shoulder catch. And if he has drop issues and if this team can't trust him to go out there and make plays and make catches, then it's going to be really hard for him to find a role on this roster and find out where he fits on this Texans team. I want Metchie to make this team, and I think he ends up making the squad. But he is on that bubble for me because he's not in the top 4 wide receivers. So that means he's wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6. He's going to have to help in special teams or something like that if that's the case. And I don't know, do you have him as your punt or kick returner this year? If so, I think he definitely makes the roster. But if not, then you're looking at a guy who's your wide receiver 5 who has some drop issues. And that's a little bit concerning to me if you're looking at this Texans squad. Coming up in just a moment, I have 2 defensive surprise cut candidates for this team after week 1 of OTAs. 2 guys on the defense who could find their spot taken away. So I'll break that down in just a moment. But before we get into that, check out these brand new H-Town shirts just dropped this year with the brand new secondary logo. It is so fresh. You can go check them out with our friends over at Fanatics. If you go to chatsports.com/H-Town, they have hoodies, sweaters, long sleeve, and t-shirts all available in all different sizes. You can get them in gray, white, or black as well. Very fresh. I'm not a big, jersey out in public guy, but I would rock this hoodie out in public. I would rock this long sleeve or this sweater out in public because I think it's pretty fresh. I think the new logo looks really good. If you agree with me, go check out all the options they have for you. That link is going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. Once again, it's chatsports.com/H-Town. Next up, and this one might get a lot of people upset with me as well. I'm going to go with Desmond King, nickelback. And listen, I know he played really well down the stretch last year for the Texans, and I agree with you. He was really, really good as a spark plug when the Texans picked him up off waivers after the Steelers let him go. And surprisingly, he was on the team last year, and the Texans cut him before the start of the year. So what says they don't do it again? I don't think they do. I think Desmond King has a spot on this team, but in a world where Jeff Okudah starts at CB2 and they really want Lassiter to start in the nickel, could that push King out of this roster? Could that push him out of the depth chart? Because he's really a nickel-only guy, a slot-only guy. So if they already have a guy in the slot in Kamari Lassiter who they really like, who they really want, then where do you play King? Do you keep him as a backup nickel option? Because he can't really play on the outside as much. He's more of an inside guy. I think, like I said, the Texans, they cut him last year. So having them cut him again this year wouldn't be the biggest shock. It would be disappointing because I think he's a really good player. But they could be like, hey, we see more potential in Lassiter, and we want Lassiter on the inside. So where does that leave King? That leaves him as a surprise cut candidate in my book. I have one more guy who's a surprise cut candidate for this offseason. But before I get into my final name, give me a name down in the comment section. Name a surprise cut candidate for the Texans this offseason. I'll be looking down there. Let me know, who do you think could be a name that could be on the chopping block this year? Lastly, Derek Barnett, defensive end, who, just like King, was a midseason acquisition last year after he was cut from Philadelphia. And I think, Derek Barnett, he played well for the Texans. He came in, he played well. Some of that was in, some garbage time against the Browns in that blowout game that the Texans had in the regular season. But I think, he was cut from Philly last year. Could the Texans look to, bring in some more youth? They drafted Solomon Byrd out of USC in the final rounds of this year's draft. They have Dylan Horton, who I don't know if he's going to play this year or not, but, what a warrior he was. He just finished his cancer treatments. Could they have a spot for him on the roster? They signed Edwards off the streets in free agency this year. Barnett, I think, makes, the roster is one of those rotational pass rushers. But if they want to go youth instead of some older guys like Derek Barnett, he could find himself on the chopping block this offseason. That's all I have for you today, folks. If you want to follow me on Twitter, do so at Jeremy Chuggs for the latest Texans news and rumors, the latest around the NFL, the dankest memes on the internet. And as always, go down and hit that sub button or go to youtube.com/TexansTV. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers. We are so close. If you haven't already, go down and hit that sub button. It's completely free. You also made it to the end of the video. So what's to lose? All you do is get free Texans videos all year long and support a kid from Houston who's trying to make the best Texans channel possible, or the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube. So join the wave and go down and hit that sub button.